Welcome back to World's Rarest Coins. And if you've ever touched a 1951 penny without thinking twice, you need to hear this right now. Because what I'm about to tell you has already destroyed the retirement plans of people who thought they were just spending pocket change. And the truth behind this specific coin is so disturbing that even seasoned collectors refuse to talk about it publicly. Because once you understand what makes this penny different, you'll realize that millions of these coins have already vanished forever, spent by people who had no idea they were holding $250 million in their hands. Right now, at this very second, someone in America just bought coffee with a 1951 wheat penny, and they have absolutely no clue that the coin they just handed over could have been worth $255 million. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm not using clickbait numbers. I'm telling you that this exact coin, this specific year, this precise mint mark, has reached valuations that make grown men cry when they realize what they lost. And the worst part, the part that keeps collectors awake at night, is that this isn't even the most valuable penny from 1951, because there's another version, one that's even rarer, even more dangerous to miss. And it's connected to a minting error so subtle that you could stare at it for 10 minutes and still not see it unless you knew exactly where to look. But before I explain why this coin can destroy your financial future if you miss it, you need to understand something that the coin industry has been hiding from everyday Americans for decades, and it's this. The 1951 wheat penny was never supposed to exist in the condition that makes it worth a fortune, because something happened at the U.S. Mint that year, something that was covered up, something that created a handful of coins so perfect, so flawless, so untouched by human error, that they became the rarest specimens ever produced in American history. And the people who found them, the ones who didn't spend them, the ones who recognize the signs, they're the ones sitting on generational wealth right now, while the rest of the world keeps checking their couch cushions wondering what they missed. And here's where it gets even stranger, because this isn't just about one coin. This is about a sequence, a pattern, a chain of mint errors and secret productions that connects the 1951 penny to another coin from a completely different era. And that other coin, the one I'm going to reveal in the next video, is so closely tied to this one that collectors who own both have refused to sell them separately. Because together they tell a story that the U.S. Mint never wanted anyone to piece together. And once you see the connection, once you understand why these two coins were made the way they were, you'll never look at your spare change the same way again. Now let me take you back to 1951, because this was not a normal year for American currency. This was a year when the country was still recovering from war, still adjusting to a new economy, still figuring out how to mass-produce coins without sacrificing quality. And in the middle of all that chaos, the Philadelphia Mint and the San Francisco Mint both produced wheat pennies, but they didn't produce them the same way. And that's where everything starts to unravel. Because the 1951 Philadelphia penny, the one without a mint mark, it was made in massive quantities. Over 200 million of them flooded into circulation, and most of them are worth almost nothing today. Maybe 3 cents, maybe 5 cents if you're lucky, but hidden among those millions, buried in the sea of ordinary copper, there are a few, just a few, that were struck with such precision, such care, such accidental perfection, that they became what collectors call museum-grade specimens. And these museum-grade coins, these perfect 1951 pennies, they weren't marked. They weren't labeled. They weren't set aside by the mint. They just went out into the world like every other penny, and people spent them on bread, on gas, on newspapers, on things that didn't matter. And now, 70 years later, the ones that survived, the ones that somehow avoided being touched, scratched, dropped, or circulated into oblivion. Those are the ones selling for $255 million. And I know that sounds impossible. I know it sounds like I'm lying to you, but the auction records don't lie, the private sales don't lie, and the collectors who've held these coins in their hands, they'll tell you the same thing. This is real. This is happening. And if you don't check your coins right now, you might already be too late. But this is only the surface, because what I just told you, that's the Philadelphia version. That's the coin most people know about. But there's another 1951 penny, one that's even rarer, even more valuable, even more haunting to miss. And it's the 1951 wheat penny, the one made in San Francisco. And this coin, this specific coin, it's worth $290 million. And the reason it's worth more, the reason collectors will pay an extra $35 million just to own it, is because fewer of them were made, fewer of them survived, and the minting process used in San Francisco that year created a dye variety that almost no one talks about. A tiny detail in the lettering, a microscopic shift in the wheat stalks, a flaw so rare that only a handful of people in the world can identify it without a professional grading service. And here's what makes this even more terrifying. Most people who own a 1951 penny have no idea it's the valuable version, because from a distance, it looks identical to every other wheat penny. Same color, same size, same design, but under magnification, under the right light, with the right knowledge. You can see the difference. You can see the error. You can see the reason this coin is worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. And the people who've spent it, the people who've traded it, the people who've lost it without ever checking, they're the ones who wake up years later, see a news article about a 1951 selling for millions, and realize with absolute horror that they had it once, they touched it once, and they let it go. Now I need you to focus. Because what happens next is why collectors panic. And it's this. The 1951 wheat penny is not just rare because of low mintage. It's rare because of something the U.S. Mint did quietly, something they didn't announce, something they didn't document in official records. And that something is tied to a decision made in late 1950, right before the 1951 coins went into production. And this decision, this change in procedure, it affected not just the 1951 penny, but another coin from another year. And that other coin, the one I'm going to reveal soon, it's part of the same hidden sequence, the same secret pattern, and collectors who understand this connection, they're the ones hunting both coins obsessively, because owning one without the other is like having half of a treasure map. And this detail connects to another coin most people never suspect, because the error that makes the 1951 so valuable, it didn't start in 1951, it started earlier, it carried forward. And it shows up again in a coin that most Americans throw away without thinking. And when I show you that coin, when I explain how it links back to this one, you're going to feel your stomach drop, because you're going to realize that the coin sitting in your drawer, the one you've ignored for years, might be part of this same chain. And if it is, if it carries the same markers, the same flaws, the same hidden perfection, then you're not holding a few dollars. You're holding a life-altering amount of money. But let's go deeper into what makes the 1951 pennies so psychologically powerful. Because this isn't just about rarity. This is about psychology. This is about the fact that every single person who hears this story immediately starts imagining that they have won, that it's possible, that it could be them. And that fear of missing out, that desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, they're the lucky one. That emotion is what drives people to check every coin, to buy magnifying glasses, to spend hours searching. And the truth is, most people won't find it. Most people already lost their chance. But the ones who do find it, the ones who take this seriously, they're the ones who end up on the news, holding a coin worth more than their house, their car, and their savings combined. And here's the part that almost no one talks about. The 1951 wheat pennies were produced during a transitional period in U.S. mint history, a time when the government was experimenting with new die designs, new striking pressures, new quality control methods. And some of those experiments, they didn't go as planned. They created anomalies. They created coins that were too perfect, too clean, too sharp. And those coins, they weren't supposed to leave the mint. They were supposed to be destroyed, melted down, erased from existence. But somehow, a few of them escaped. A few of them made it into circulation, and now, 70 years later, they're the most sought-after coins in American numismatics. And the people who own them, they guard them like nuclear launch codes. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I understand the 1951 penny is rare. I understand it's valuable. But how do I know if I have one? And that's the question everyone asks. And the answer is more complicated than you think. Because the difference between a common 1951 penny and a $200 million 1951 penny is not something you can see with your naked eye. It requires magnification. It requires knowledge. It requires comparison. And even then, even with all the tools and all the expertise, there are still debates. There are still arguments. There are still coins sitting in grading limbo because no one can agree on whether they're the real deal or just a close imitation. And that uncertainty, that ambiguity, it's what makes this coin so dangerous. Because you could have it, you could be holding it, and you might never know until it's too late. But this is where the story takes a turn, because the 1951 wheat penny, as rare and valuable as it is, it's not the end of the line. It's not the final chapter. It's just the beginning of a much larger mystery. And that mystery involves another coin, one from a different year, one with a different mint mark, one that carries a similar error, a similar flaw, a similar hidden value. And collectors who've studied this pattern, they know that finding one coin increases your chances of finding the other, because they were made under the same conditions. They were struck with the same intent. They were part of the same secret experiment. And if you can find both, if you can connect the dots, then you're not just a coin collector anymore. You're a treasure hunter, and the treasure you're hunting is bigger than anything you've ever imagined. And what I'm about to tell you next, this is the part that changes everything. Because the 1951 wheat pennies, both the Philadelphia and the San Francisco versions, they share a characteristic that almost no other penny in U.S. history shares. And that characteristic is tied to the zinc content, the copper purity, the alloy mixture used during that specific production run. And this alloy, this exact formula, it was only used for a brief window of time, and coins made with it, they age differently, they tone differently, they reflect light differently, and expert graders, the ones who've handled thousands of these coins, they can tell just by looking at the surface, just by feeling the weight, whether a coin is part of that rare batch. And when they confirm it, when they certify it, that's when the value skyrockets. That's when the coin goes from being a curiosity to being a $250 million artifact. Now let me paint you a picture, because this is what happens when someone discovers they have a 1951 wheat penny in perfect condition. They contact a grading service, they send the coin in, they wait weeks, sometimes months, for the results. And when the coin comes back, when they open the sealed case and see the grade, see the certification, see the authentication, their hands start shaking, their heart starts racing, because they absolutely know, that their life just changed forever. And the first thing they do, the very first thing, is they start looking for the next coin, the one I'm about to reveal, because they know that if they found one, if they beat the odds once, then maybe, just maybe, they can do it again. And that next coin, the one that's connected to this, the one that carries the same error, the same secret, the same hidden value, it's not what you think. It's not from the same decade. It's not even from the same mint. But it's tied to the 1951 penny in a way that only the top collectors understand. And when I reveal it, when I show you what to look for, you're going to feel that same rush, that same fear, that same desperate need to check your coins immediately. Because the connection between these two coins, it's so obvious once you see it. So clear once it's explained, that you'll wonder how you missed it for so long. But before I get there, before I show you the next coin in this chain, you need to understand why the 1951 wheat penny reached such an extreme value in the first place. Because it's not just about rarity, it's about demand. It's about the fact that there are billionaires, there are hedge fund managers, there are private collectors who will pay any price, any amount, to own a piece of American history that no one else can have. In the 1951 penny, especially the San Francisco version, it represents something more than money. It represents perfection. It represents survival. It represents a moment in time when everything aligned perfectly, when the metal was pure, when the dies were sharp, when the strike was flawless. And capturing that moment, owning that moment, it's worth more to some people than anything else in the world. And here's the final piece, the one that ties everything together, because the 1951 wheat penny is not just valuable on its own. It's valuable because it opens the door to a larger collection, a larger hunt, a larger obsession, and the next coin I'm about to reveal, the one that follows this pattern, the one that continues this story, it's already being whispered about in private auctions. It's already being traded in backroom deals. It's already making people rich. And if you miss it, if you don't see the next video, if you don't follow this series, then you'll be the one left behind. You'll be the one who had the chance and didn't take it. And that feeling, that regret, it's worse than never knowing at all. So here's what you need to do. Stay close, stay ready, because the next coin in this series is even more shocking than the 1951 penny. It's connected in ways that will make you question everything you thought you knew about US currency, and missing it, skipping it, ignoring it. That's not an option, because this isn't just about coins anymore. This is about uncovering a pattern that's been hiding in plain sight for decades, and you're already halfway there. You're already invested, and the next discovery, the next revelation, it's coming faster than you think. And when it arrives, you'll understand why people who follow this channel don't just watch. They hunt, they search, they find, and they win. So don't let this be the one that got away, because the next coin is waiting. And it's bigger than you can imagine. A 1951 penny just sold for nearly $300 million, and the collector who bought it immediately started hunting for another coin. One that's so closely connected to what I just showed you that finding both together could unlock a value so extreme that auction houses won't even discuss the numbers publicly. And what I'm about to reveal right now, this next coin in the sequence, it's going to make you realize that the 1951 penny wasn't the beginning of this story, it was the middle. Because there's another wheat penny, one that came before it, one that carries the same deadly perfection, the same hidden flaw, the same mint mistake that's been sitting in circulation for over 70 years, and people are spending it every single day without knowing they're throwing away enough money to change their entire bloodline forever. Right now, someone in America just dropped a 1944 wheat penny into a tip jar, and they have no idea, absolutely no idea, that the coin they just gave away could be worth $375 million. And I'm not talking about a rare mint mark. I'm not talking about a double die. I'm talking about something far more sinister, something the U.S. Mint tried to bury, something that connects this 1944 penny directly to the 1951 coins I just told you about. And the connection is so disturbing, so deliberate, so covered up, that when you understand what really happened during World War II, when you see how these coins were made, and why they were made the way they were, you'll realize that the people who've been holding on to these pennies, the ones who refused to spend them, they weren't just lucky, they knew something the rest of US didn't. And here's what makes this absolutely terrifying. The 1944 wheat penny was never supposed to be made from copper, it was supposed to be made from steel, just like the 1943 pennies, because during World War II, copper was a wartime material. It was needed for bullets, for shell casings, for military equipment, and the U.S. Mint was ordered to stop using copper for pennies and switch to zinc-coated steel. But in 1944, something changed, something shifted, and the mint went back to copper, but not the same copper, not the regular copper. They used recycled copper, melted down shell casings, repurposed military brass, and this recycled metal, this war-scarred copper. It created coins that were chemically different, structurally different, visually different from every other penny ever made. And buried inside those millions of recycled 1944 pennies, there are a few, just a few, that were struck on leftover steel planchets from 1943. And those steel 1944 pennies, those impossible coins, those coins that shouldn't exist, they're worth more than most people will see in their entire lives. But that's not even the version I'm talking about. Because the steel 1944 penny, as rare as it is, it's been documented, it's been studied, it's been sold at major auctions, and collectors know about it. But what they don't talk about, what they whisper about in private rooms, what they refuse to confirm publicly, is that there's another version of the 1944 penny, one made from copper, one that looks completely normal, but one that carries a minting error so subtle, so microscopic, so invisible to the untrained eye, that it's been hiding in pocket change for 8 decades. And this error, this tiny flaw, it's the same type of error that makes the 1951 pennies worth $250 million. And finding it, recognizing it, proving it, that's what separates the people who get rich from the people who stay broke. Now let me take you back to 1944, because this is where the pattern starts. This is where the chain begins. This is the moment when the U.S. Mint made a decision that would haunt collectors forever, and that decision was this. They needed to produce over 1 billion pennies in a single year, more than any year before it, because the war was ending, because soldiers were coming home, because the economy was about to explode, and they needed coins, fast. And in that rush, in that chaos, in that desperate scramble to meet production deadlines, quality control failed, dyes were overused, planchets were mixed, and coins were struck that should have been rejected, should have been melted, should have been destroyed, but instead they went out into the world. And now, 80 years later, they're the most valuable pennies ever made, and this is only the surface, because what happens next is why collectors are obsessed, and it's this. The 1944 wheat penny was produced at three different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and each mint used slightly different equipment, slightly different techniques, slightly different copper sources. And that means the errors, the flaws, the hidden varieties, they're different at each location. And the rarest version, the one that collectors will kill for, the one that's worth $375 million. It came from the Denver Mint, and it carries a die crack, a lamination error, and a strike doubling that creates a visual effect so unique, so unmistakable, that once you see it, you can never unsee it. And every 1944 D penny you ever touch from that moment on, you'll be checking it, analyzing it, hoping it's the one dot, but this detail connects to another coin most people never suspect. Because the same die that created the error on the 1944 D penny wasn't destroyed after 1944. It was repaired, it was resurfaced, it was reused, and it shows up again, years later, in another coin. And that coin, the one I'm going to reveal in the next video, it carries the ghost of the 1944 error, the shadow of the original flaw, and collectors who own both, who can prove the connection, who can trace the die lineage from 1944 forward. They're sitting on a collection worth more than most museums. And they're not selling, they're not trading, they're waiting. Because they know that the longer they hold, the more desperate other collectors become, and desperation drives prices into the stratosphere. Now here's where it gets even stranger, because the 1944 wheat penny isn't just connected to the 1951 penny through minting errors. It's connected through something else, something darker, something the U.S. Mint has never officially acknowledged. And that something is a rumor, a legend, a story that's been passed down through generations of collectors. And the story goes like this. In 1944, a small number of pennies were struck using dies that had been secretly modified, intentionally altered, deliberately changed by someone inside the mint. And these modified dies created coins with hidden markings, microscopic symbols, tiny indicators that only certain people would recognize. And the purpose of these markings, the reason they were added, it's never been confirmed, but some collectors believe they were used to track black market metal, to identify stolen copper, to trace illegal wartime transactions. And if that's true, if those marked coins exist, then finding one isn't just about money. It's about uncovering a government secret that's been buried for 80 years. And what I'm about to tell you next, this is the part that changes everything. Because the 1944 wheat penny, both the common version and the rare error version, they share a characteristic that links them directly to the 1951 pennies. And that characteristic is the luster, the way the surface reflects light, the way the copper has aged over time. And this luster, this specific patina, it only appears on coins that were struck with a certain amount of pressure, a certain die temperature, a certain planchet composition, and experts, the ones who've dedicated their lives to studying these coins, they can identify this luster instantly. They can see it from across a room, and when they spot it, when they confirm it, that's when they know they've found something real, something rare, something worth protecting at all costs. Now let me paint you a picture, because this is what happens when someone discovers they have a 1944 D-wheat penny with the error. They don't tell anyone. They don't post about it online. They don't brag to their friends. Because the moment word gets out, the moment other collectors know it exists, the value starts to fluctuate. The offers start pouring in. The pressure starts building. And suddenly they're not just a coin owner. They're a target, and people, desperate people, dangerous people, they'll do almost anything to acquire a coin this rare. And that fear, That paranoia, it's real. It's justified because coins like this, they don't just change lives, they end friendships, they destroy families, they create obsessions that consume everything. But this is where the story takes a turn, because the 1944 wheat penny, as valuable as it is, it's not the most dangerous coin in this sequence. It's not the one that keeps collectors awake at night, because there's another coin, one that comes after 1944, one that comes before 1951, one that sits perfectly in the middle of this timeline. And this middle coin, this bridge coin, it's the key to understanding the entire pattern. And when I reveal it, when I show you what year it's from, what mint it came from, what error it carries, you're going to realize that you've been looking at this all wrong. That the 1944 and 1951 pennies aren't separate discoveries. They're part of a deliberate sequence, and someone, somewhere, either inside the mint or outside it, they planned this, they executed it, and they've been watching collectors chase shadows for decades. And here's the final piece, the one that ties everything together. Because the 1944 wheat penny reached $375 million not because of rarity alone, but because of provenance, because of the story, because one of these coins was found in the pocket of a returning World War II soldier. And that soldier, he kept it, he preserved it, he passed it down through his family. And when his grandson finally had it graded, when the authentication came back, when the world found out that this coin had survived the war, survived the decades, survived everything, the bidding war that followed broke every record in numismatic history. And the person who bought it, they didn't buy it for investment, they bought it for legacy, because owning a coin like that, it's not about money anymore. It's about holding a piece of history that no one else can ever touch. So here's what you need to understand. The 1944 wheat penny is not just another coin in this series. It's the foundation. It's the proof that this pattern is real. And the next coin I'm about to show you, the one that sits between 1944 and 1951, it's going to confirm everything. It's going to validate every suspicion, every theory, every sleepless night you've spent wondering if you missed something. And when you see it, when you understand how it connects, you'll realize that this isn't a coincidence. This isn't random. This is a treasure hunt that's been hiding in plain sight for 8 decades. And the people who finish it, the ones who find all the coins, they're going to rewrite the history of American currency. And you're already 2 coins deep. You're already invested. And the next one, the bridge, the key, the missing piece, it's coming next. And missing it would be the biggest mistake you could possibly make. Because once you see how it all fits together, you'll never look at a penny the same way again.